karma and pratyasamutpada. Well, when we talk about karma, and what exactly is karma? Probably we have a general idea of karma that affect our lives, affect the whole environment, the family, the society, the world. Karma, this word here referring to some kind of actions. And actions create some force. And in Chinese, it's called karmic force, rather than just karma itself. So first of all, karma is some kind of power, the movement that created by you say our behavior, our speech, and also our mind. Everything we do will create some kind of momentum of the force that lead to something else. So that is called karma. And karma, we also say that karma, we have the so-called individual karma, as well as collective karma, or maybe we call it shared karma. What is individual karma referring to? Whatever that is individual is doing through their own speech, their own behavior, and their mind, that is create something through these persons that doing these things, then it will create a force, and this force will connect with other conditions. It comes to it just moves with other conditions that work together and will become something else. And collective karma referring to something we do together. Say, for example, we practice here together today. So there will be a collective karma that we created with so many people. And it move on to the next and continue on like this. When we observe karma, it's kind of complicated. We can say that karma is also referring to something that is, we cannot really clearly state what karma is like. Say, for example, what happens in Indonesia when the tsunami came. You can feel it. Wow, that is so enormous, it's so serious. And even earthquake happens everywhere in the world, not only just in Indonesia, but in Taiwan, in Japan, in China, and in Mexico, everywhere. And we feel like this is like enormous, something that out of control, that it's difficult to really handle it. Although nowadays the progressions, the high development of technology, and we still cannot really take real control out of it. And it's just like you can say that, okay, this is really, you know, the so-called collective karma of the certain things that happens in, you know, different parts of the world. And individual karma referring to something that's happened to one person. Say, for example, in a family, someone was born rich, healthy, and good looking on the on the outlook. But someone in the same family, they could be born in the rich family, but the health condition is not good. And they don't look so nice, you know, on their appearance. So each one is different. Even for the twins that born, you say twin is very alike. But one is born earlier than the other, right? So it's different. And then when they grow up, there are many things that's similar, but they're not the same. So somehow they have some, you could say that they have some more detailed differences. They could look very much the same from the outlook for something that is not familiar with them, you know, with the twins. But family members or their wife or husbands will notice the difference. Of course, sometimes they don't notice, but somehow they are individually different. And when we talk about karma, then we cannot but talk about the so-called causes and effect, or causes and result. That is to say, whatever one did before, referring to, well, a very short time, a few weeks ago, or even today, then the effect will come later on. And in the teaching of the Buddha, then we talk about this past, this present, and the future. The past, referring to the time, present and future, all three are referring to time. But time could be the so-called for this lifetime, but also many, many lifetimes before this lifetime. So it's the past. And the future would be, you know, many, many lifetimes in the future. There is a common belief that whatever we do, we will harvest the result. That statement is correct. But the thing of understanding, the way we understanding is that if we think that, okay, I have a seed, say the mango seed, and then when I plant the mango seed, I will harvest mangoes later. that understanding is not exactly correct, right? If we don't have, yeah, we have the mango seed, but if we don't have the right soil, if we don't water it, and there's no sunshine, the mango will not grow to become a mango tree, and then it will not grow so that we can harvest mangoes. So that is to say, we need to somehow add something to it to make this mango seed to have a tree, and then to grow so that it could flower, and it could, you know, bear fruits. So all along the way, we need so many conditions for this mango seed to really become a tree and then bear fruit. So there are many conditions that making this work. So yes, it will result that the statement of causes, they are causes, and then there will be result. But result is what? The result could be you have a mango tree. The mango tree will bear fruit. But the result could be that it becomes like a rotten mango seed. It won't do anything because nothing is added to it to help it grow. Or it becomes that although you have soil, although you have water, and somehow certain reasons, the mango tree is not healthy enough and it won't bear fruits. So different conditions that make it the result, and the results are there, but the results are different. So that is the idea of the so-called causes lead to results, right? And when we talk about causes and results, then we always have to talk about causes and conditions. That is to say, one cause, the main cause. And then when we want to make it to the result that we intend to do, we need to have many conditions to make it work. Many conditions, say for example, you know, the famous movie star, once famous movie star, the Arnold, right? Very healthy and very, you know, strong movie star. When he was young, he was, you know, he was weak, and he was bullied a lot in school when he was a kid. So what he did was that he really, you know, like go to gym and do exercise and work so hard so that make him very strong. And I think he won the world champions in gym, you know, healthy, become a healthy man, very strong man. And that is to say, yeah, he started out with condition that is not so favorable, you know, to have a healthy body, a beautiful body. Bodybuilder he was. But because of his hard work, he put a lot of time into it. And then he became you know, the healthy one, or the very physically very strong person. That is to say, he put a lot of effort. That those efforts are the conditions. So causes and conditions. Not only that, but we also need to know that one cause itself, the main cause, say for example, anything that you can name it, say a clock. A clock by itself, you can say that is itself, it's a result, right? But the result coming from what? From many conditions that make the clock to be a clock. Say, for example, you need this clock here. You need plastic. You need a digital, electronics component inside. We need technologies and mechanical things, and not only plastic, but inside there's some metal in it, there's something else in it, so that finally we have a clock. So that it refers to conditions. Many conditions make this clock possible to become a clock now, right? So the conditions that make the clocks, and the conditions always changing. Something else have come in afterward. Say for example, it's been used for a while and then there's no battery, or then the clock won't work, or the contact point where the battery, we put the battery in, become rusty, and then electricity will not be able to go through it, then the clock won't work. So it become a broken clock, right? And then one day, because it's been used for a while, and the component, very small component inside got broken, then the clock will not work. And again, it becomes a broken clock rather than a clock, a working clock, clock. So that is to say, is in the stage of changing. Now referring to ourselves, our body, when we are born as a baby. We need to eat food, we need to drink, we need to sleep so that we grow. And then the process of growing itself, we take not only food, but we receive many things, many conditions, you can say that. The teachings, we go to school, right? And we need the place to stay, the dwelling place. And then we need to wear clothes. And then we need transportation, car, travel one place to the others. So, and then we receive the teaching or receive the teaching from schools or from the society. Nowadays, we receive a lot of information on the internet. So all these conditions coming to making ourselves like this, but also we grow from baby to kids to young person, and then to adult, and then we get old, and along the way we get sick many times, and there's some accident happens. So we are very much affected, or depending on conditions that making ourselves. And then the way we think always changing all the time, from time to time. Anytime we receive some information, different information, we have some different aspect about certain thing, about life. So our cell is in the process like this. It's called birth, aging, sick, and death. We have to go through this process, right? Because of many different conditions that making like this. And then for the physical world that we are in, it also going through the process of becoming, and then staying, and then decaying, and then it become empty. It's, perishing, you say, perishing. So the physical world is like this. And then our mental state also go through this process. Becoming. And then the thought, stay. And then the thought will decay and then finish. Everything goes through like this process like this. And that's how the world, it's like this, it's running like this, functioning like this. And so first of all, is the karma, the force. So whatever we do, what we think, behave, then it will cause a force to become something. And then we have this causes and conditions that work along the way with causes and effects. So we can see very clearly, how it works. Causes and conditions, and then the causes and conditions, right? So for us, if we go through like this process like this, certain time, we will think that, are we just going like this? Is there any choice for us to do something? Then the saying of how to plan the virtuous karmic affinity. What exactly is this planting the virtuous karmic affinity? Is referring to that we do something so that we have good results in the future. Now, if we say that, okay, I'll do nice things, I behave well, so that I in hope in the future, not only in this lifetime, but also in the future, that I will harvest good results, say good life, rich life, healthy body, good looking, everyone or most of the people like me, something like that. And I'll become very learned. Well, we could do something so that in this lifetime, we have this we make this condition possible for us in the future. But we need to know that the teaching of the Buddha is telling us that because of these conditions that is changing all the time, different conditions make things differently. and the result would be differently. So we understood the teaching of the so-called emptiness or the so-called impermanence. Because of impermanence, then we understand what? We understand emptiness. Emptiness because things change. It will not stay. And all these things that stay, it's just temporary. Say, I just give an example of the clock, right? Yeah, it stays as a clock temporary, but it will change to become an unbroken one. A broken, clock. And then later on, we cannot, it won't function as a clock anymore. So it's the state of changing that itself has the nature of so-called emptiness. So if we want to, if we want to avoid this is to say, yeah, everything is in a state of unsatisfaction. So we don't want to be influenced by this. Then we probably will try to think or plan the so-called virtuous karmic affinity, referring to we understand this impermanence, this idea, this teaching of impermanence and emptiness. Then we try to plan this virtuous karmic affinity that is connected with the ideas of impermanence, the idea of emptiness. That is to say, we practice, but we try not to attach to the good life in the future, but to work towards the so-called the state of emptiness, the realization of emptiness, and the ultimate idea of emptiness. That is to say, to realize what exactly is emptiness. And usually we call it enlightenment, right? So that is to say, that's how we try to plant the seed and reflect on ourselves. Could we let go of attachments to many things? But that doesn't mean that we don't care about anything, but actually we need to work very hard to reach that, right? So this is the talk of karma and Paticcasamuppada. I hope you understand. Now coming to the so-called questions. First of all is that with regards to the Madhyamika and Tathagatagarbha philosophy, which one is Shifu Guoyan more resonant, has affinity? Would you elaborate, please? And how about Master Sheng Yan? Well, what I received the teaching from Sri Gong is that, yeah, he talked about more about Madhyamika than the Tathagatagarbha. And Madhyamika is to disregard the so-called existence, and also disregard the so-called so-called emptiness, and then not to hold on to the middle, which is in between existence and emptiness. So it's disregard everything. Then is so-called the middle way, because Madhyamaka talk about the middle way. What exactly is the middle way? Now, existence means the idea of holding on to a self that is staying forever, right? The emptiness here referring to disregard everything. Everything is empty. Even the idea of causes and effects, right? So it's empty out everything. So it's not the right teaching. And then, so we hold on to the middle, but even the middle itself, you have to let go of it. So that is to say, it is going beyond the so-called existence and unexistence. The emptiness here, this state here, the emptiness that we're talking about is referring to like empty space. Nothing is there. So in the teaching of the Buddha, it's not like this. Just like we mentioned that we never deny the state of certain things that temporary staying, say temporary, this time, yeah, it's there, but it's always changing. That is okay. So we don't deny the existence of phenomena. It's always there. We cannot say, I'm doing this, and I cannot say that it's empty. It's there. I feel it. It's there, but later on it's gone. I don't feel pain anymore. So that itself is do not deny any phenomenon, but they are in the state of changing. So that is the idea, the teaching of it. So Tathagata Gaba, referring to the so-called this term here, referring to the Buddha nature that we have. Everyone has the Buddha nature, but the thing with the idea of the so-called Buddha nature, sometimes it's easy for people to take it as there's something there that is never changed, and there's just something that you could feel, you could see, or you feel it for yourself. So this idea here, it's very easy for people to, you can say that, to mislead people. So that is why Sugong teach this here. He did not deny this idea of Tathagata Gaba. But what he says is that Tathagata Gaba itself is also in a state of in itself is also is referring to the so-called emptiness. Now, this emptiness here is not the emptiness that I just mentioned before, right? So So emptiness here is actually he referring to the Madhyamika. So that's what I understood. And then the question is that how about Sư Công, Mr. Seung Yen? Now I think I cannot answer for him. And you say he's already passed away. You know, how could I ask him? Go and ask him. Well, if that's the case, then we need to take more or read more about his books and understand what his teaching is. Then you'll get it. Okay, so this is one question. The second one is in Sư Công book Zen Wisdom, page 145, 146. There's a basic criteria in choosing over assessing teachers. Consider teachers' causes and consequences and causes and conditions. Please explain. Well, this referring to choosing a teacher. If you have some idea of what Buddhism is like, then you could use that principles of the Buddhism to know about the teacher that you're choosing. Because being a teacher, there are three conditions. One is that is the teacher able to teach you? The second is that is the teacher behave according to the Vinaya? And is the teacher has the ability to guide you through your spiritual practice? Right? And what exactly is the teaching? Well, the guiding teaching is that he also lived through this teaching of, first of all, we talk about this suffering, impermanence, emptiness, the state of no self, and nirvana, right? If his teaching never lived from this impermanence, suffering, emptiness, or nirvana, and also never deviate from teaching of causes and consequences, or causes and effect, or causes and result, and also causes and conditions. So it's the guideline there. So that is, he also lived this way. Now, another thing is about the Vinaya, the so-called precepts. At least he strictly followed the precepts. Very simple one is the 5 precepts. Use it as a reference. And then for monastics, then he should be celebrated. Right? So these things here, you could refer to it as a guideline for you to choose. Of course, the method of practice as well as the concept of theories, it will be able to guide you. Now, if you are coming, if you receive or you meet a teacher and you feel resonance with him in certain ways, but after a while you observe, and the way he talked about Buddhism, and then the way he behaved is not according, then probably it's not the right one for you. But also in Sư Gong's book, he mentioned that the teacher, although his behavior referring to the Vinaya that he's keeping, he may break something, some of the, the regulations or the precepts, but his teaching is still the good teaching of the Buddha, then still consider it's all right to follow him. That's what Sư Gong said in his book, because at least he never lead you to a deviate concepts, teaching, so that you go in a wrong way. So that is the thing. Okay, so I'll stop my talk here.